Qumran Caves are a series of caves, some natural, some artificial, found around the archaeological site of Qumran in the Judean Desert. It is in a number of these caves that the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered. History: the limestone cliffs above Qumran contain numerous caves that have been used over the millennia. The first traces of occupation are from the Chalcolithic period, then onward to the Arab period. The artificial caves relate to the period of the settlement at Qumran and were cut into the marl bluffs of the terrace on which Qumran sits. Dead Sea Scrolls. In early 1947, a Bedouin boy of the Taymuri tribe, Muhammad Ahmed el-Hamd called Edtab, found a cave after searching for a lost animal. He stumbled onto the first cave containing scrolls from 2,000 years ago. More Taymuri visited the cave and scrolls were taken back to their encampment. They were shown to Mar Samuel of the monastery of St. Mark in April 1947 and the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls was made known. The location of the cave was not revealed for another 18 months, but eventually a joint investigation of the cave site was led by Roland DeVoe and Gerald Lancaster Harding. The interest in the scrolls with the hope of money from their sale initiated a long area-wide search by the Taymuri to find more such scrolls, the first result of which was the discovery of 4 caves in Wadi Murabayat about 15 kilometers south of Qumran in 1951. In the Qumran area another cave was discovered, now referred to as Cave 2Q, in February 1952. However, only a few fragments were found in the cave. Fear of the destruction of archaeological evidence with the discovery of caves by the Bedouin led to a campaign by the French and American schools to explore all other caves to find any remaining scrolls. Although 230 natural caves, crevices and other possible hiding places were examined in an 8-kilometer area along the cliffs near Qumran, only 40 contained any artifacts and one alone, 3Q, produced texts, the most unusual being the copper scroll. 4Q was discovered in September 1952 by the Taymuri. DeVoe, on being offered a vast amount of fragments, contacted Harding, who drove the Qumran site to find that the Bedouin had discovered caves very near the Qumran ruins. These were caves 4Q, 5Q, and 6Q, the most important of which was 4Q, which originally contained around 3/4 of all the scrolls found in the immediate Qumran area. The first 2 of these caves had been cut into the marl terrace. The third was at the entrance to the Qumran Gorge just below the aqueduct. In 1955 a survey of the terrace brought to light a staircase leading down to the remains of 3 more artificial caves, 7Q, 8Q and 9Q at the end of the Qumran esplanade, all of which had collapsed and had been eroded, and a 4th cave, 10Q, on the outcrop which housed caves 4Q and 5Q. The last cave containing scrolls to be found, once again by the Taymuri, was 11Q. Among its contents was the temple scroll, though it had been spirited away and its recovery was to prove long and complex. Artificial caves. In all there are 10 marl-cut caves in the near vicinity of Qumran, 4QA, 4QB, 5Q, 7Q, 8Q, 9Q, 10Q, an oval cave west of 5Q, and 2 caves to the north in a separate ravine. Their location necessitates a direct connection with the Qumran settlement. The 3 caves at the end of the esplanade could only be accessed via the settlement. These caves are thought to have been cut for storage and habitation. Marl is a soft stone and makes excavation relatively easy, but as seen with caves 7Q, 9Q they haven't survived well. 4Q, which is now visible from the Qumran esplanade, is actually 2 caves, one adjacent to the other. DeVoe referred to them as 4A and 4B. When the Taymuri removed all the fragments they could before Harding's arrival, there was no way to tell which scrolls belonged to which cave, so they were later all catalogued simply as from 4Q. In excavating the caves hundreds of fragments were still to be found in 4A while only 2 or 3 fragments in 4B. 4A was 8 meters long and 3.25 meters wide with tapering walls reaching 3 m in height. Archaeological excavations. In 1984 to 1985 Joseph Patrick and Yigal Yadin carried out a systematic survey of over 57 caves north of Qumran and 2 to the south. In 1985 to 1991 Patrick excavated 5 caves, including caves 3Q and 11Q. One of Patrick's conclusions was that the caves did not serve as habitations for the members of the Dead Sea sect, but rather as stores and hiding places. Patrick took a jackhammer into 3Q to break up and remove large fallen rocks in order to discover that under the rocks there were only a few calcolithic shards, showing that the ceiling had collapsed before any Qumran-era occupation could have happened. The cave was uninhabited and used only to store the scrolls left there. In 1988 in the cave Patrick designated as Cave 13, just north of 3Q, a small juglet was found from the Herodian era, which was wrapped in palm fibers and contained a viscous liquid which Patrick presumed was aromatic balsam residue. In 1991 he discovered several jar stoppers and a complete jar along with date stones and dried dates suggesting occupation, but as the area in front of the cave showed no attempt to convert it into a terrace, he concluded that occupation was not of any length. 11Q was examined and no traces of Qumran-era occupation was found. A cave Patrick called Cave 24, which lay between 11Q and 3Q, was large and habitable, but showed no sign of long-term habitation. Cave FQ37 located high up on the cliff face 2 kilometers south of Qumran was also an improbable site for permanent dwelling, due to its inaccessibility. In the winter of 1995 to 1996 Majan Broshy and Hanan Eshel carried out further excavations in the caves north of Qumran. They reported other caves not examined by Patrick and believed that they served as dwellings for the inhabitants of Qumran along with other artificial caves that have long ago eroded away from the edge of the Marla Terrace. Broshy and Eshel concentrated their interest in the area just north of Qumran, examining 2 caves they designated as C and F in a small ravine. The former had part of its ceiling caved in and was filled with silt from flash floods, but contained 280 potsherds. Cave F had completely collapsed, but when excavated yielded 110 potsherds. They concluded that the area was residential. See also, Shrine of the Book, Rockefeller Museum, Antiquities Trade, References. Bibliography, Allegro, John M., The Dead Sea Scrolls. Broshy, Majan, and Eshel, Hanan, Residential Caves at Qumran. Dead Sea Discoveries 6, 328-348, DeVoe, Roland, Archaeology and the Dead Sea Scrolls. English translation from the French. Star paragraph K. Ben Ezra, Daniel, Old Caves and Young Caves, A Statistical Re-Evaluation of a Qumran Consensus Dead Sea Discoveries 14, 3, 313-333. Humbert, Jean-Baptiste and Chambon, Alain, The Excavations of Khirbet Qumran and Ain Feshka, Volume 1b trans by Stephen J. Fan, Editions Universitaires Freiburg Suisse. Patrick, Joseph, Khirbet Qumran in the Light of New Archaeological Explorations in the Qumran Caves, in Methods of Investigation of the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Khirbet Qumran Site, Present Realities and Future Prospects 73-95. Patrick, Joseph, Did extramural dwelling quarters exist at Qumran? In the Dead Sea Scrolls, 50 years after their discovery. Edited by Lawrence H. Schiffman, Emmanuel Tov, James C. Vander Kam, and Galen Marquis 720-727. Trevor, John C., The Untold Story of Qumran. Vander Kam, James and Flint, Peter, The Meaning of the Dead Sea Scrolls ISBN 0-06-068464-X, External links, The Orion Center's Cave Tour.